Well, they're $100,000 per year. So the whole idea is no more will these big tech companies or other big companies train foreign workers.
All they're doing is just trying to move the goalposts. Like, we're not going to hold a candlelight vigil for Charlie. We never asked you to do that. All we asked was you to just act like a human who just avoids murder and doesn't condone it. Get out! Bye. Oh, no, right on her bum. H1Bs are going H1 bye-bye. President Trump coming out with a new presidential action. Seen here. Restriction on entry of certain non-immigrant workers. And man, there are a lot of H1Bs out there screaming at the sky, wondering what their future looks like now that it's going to cost them a lot more money to get access to the American markets because they're being brought in by these corporations who are excited to have lower cost workers at the expense of Americans. So the scam's over. Trump is now coming out with this. We're going to go through the details because there's questions about how this is going to be implemented, whether it's going to be applicable to all current H1Bs here, currently right now, only to futures. Is it every year you have to get a new $100,000 bill, essentially, a little extra fee if you want these people to come in? We'll go through it. But the president and his team were in the Oval Office yesterday talking about all of this, and Howard Lutnick is right over here to the president's right. Here's how this went down when Trump was signing these babies yesterday.
Follow up on the visa question. I think this may be the next thing that you're signing, but for the H-1B visa action that you're doing
It's
today,
going to be next. We'll talk about that.
you're very close to the technology CEOs. Are they concerned about that?
I think they're going to be very happy. Everyone's going to be happy. And we're going to be able to keep people in our country that are going to be very productive people. And in many cases, these companies are going to pay a lot of money for that. And they're very happy about it. Okay, we'll talk about that next, Sarah. My friend, why don't you keep that, okay?
Thank you.
Done such a good job. It's phase one.
Nice, Mr. President.
John, are you happy?
Okay, next.
Thank you, Mr. President. One of the most abused visa systems in our current immigration system has been the H-1B non-immigrant visa program. This is supposed to allow highly skilled laborers who work in fields that Americans don't work in to come into the United States of America. What this proclamation will do is raise the fee that companies pay to sponsor H-1B applicants to $100,000. This will ensure that the people they're bringing in are actually very highly skilled and that they're not replaceable by American workers. So it'll protect American workers, but ensure that companies have a pathway to hire truly extraordinary people and bring them to the United States to work.
We need workers. We need workers. We need great workers. And this pretty much ensures that that's what's going to happen. I think, Sean, do you agree with that?
Well, they're $100,000 per year. So the whole idea is no more will these big tech companies or other big companies train foreign workers. They have to pay the government $100,000, then they have to pay the employee. So it's just not economic. If you're going to train somebody, you're going to train one of the recent graduates from one of the great universities across our land.
Nice.
Train Americans, stop bringing in people to take our jobs. That's the policy here. $100,000 a year for H-1B visas, and all of the big companies are on board. We've spoken to them about the gold card.
They
and
love
this.
it.
I'm sure they don't. Remember, this was one of those issues that Elon Musk said that he would go to war over. Remember, he posted that. Here was just some context around this. So a lot of people, this is bigotry, this is xenophobia, blah, blah, blah. Well, they brought in millions and millions of people. They flooded our country over the last 4 years. And so this is a return to norm. I heard Bill Maher saying, we shouldn't just deport people or demand that they leave and pare down the people who are already here. Because he says, why don't we just not do anything and then we can normalize? We can return back to normal. No, Bill. Normal, a reversion to the mean, we are way up and over that there, buddy boy. And so we've got all this influx, this flood of people in here who shouldn't be here, who are increasing the costs on average Americans, taking housing. We spend a ton of money for ERs and education and all the things. And so it's all coming to a close now. Now we're hopeful that this high cap will make all of these companies think twice, because it's not worth bringing in a $50,000 a year employee if you got to pay a $100,000 fee on top of them. Reports also indicate that many American tech companies have laid off their qualified and highly skilled American workers while simultaneously hiring thousands of H-1Bs. This is an American country for Americans, and our companies, especially our tech companies, which are like the pride and joy of the whole planet, should go to Americans. One software company was approved for over 5,000 H-1B workers in fiscal year 2025, 5,000. Now, around that same time, it announced a series of layoffs firing 15,000 employees. Now, another IT firm was approved for nearly 1,700 H-1B workers, and once they got that approved, oh, perfect, we'll bring all these foreigners in. It announced it was laying off 2,400 American workers in Oregon in July. They can still do that. They're just going to have to pay $100,000 per head on those 1,700 people. So they can still do it. Is it worth it? Or is it better to just hire an actual American? A third company has reduced its workforce by approximately 27,000 American workers while being approved for over 25,000 foreign H-1Bs. A fourth company reportedly eliminated 1,000 jobs in February, and it was approved for 1,100 H-1B workers in fiscal year 2025. Here is the actual order. What do the nuts and bolts on this say? The H-1B non-immigrant visa program was created to bring temporary workers to perform additive, high-skilled functions to America, but it has been deliberately exploited. It's now replacing Americans with lower-paid, low-skilled labor. Now, the large-scale replacement of American workers through systemic abuse of the program has undermined both our economic and national security. True. Some employers using practices now widely adopted by entire sectors. There are companies that are set up to help you get H-1B visas. Like, you go hire a consultant. Like, how many do you need? Like 5,000. Like, all right, let me go hit some senators up. So some employers using practices are widely adopted, and now we have a disadvantaged labor market for Americans, American citizens in America. Shouldn't our country care about us? While at the same time making it more difficult to attract and retain the highest skilled subset of temporary workers in important areas. Now, the number of foreign STEM workers in the United States has more than doubled from 2000 to 2019, 1.2 million to 2.5 million, which is like, roughly an increase of like 2.5 Wyomings. Among computer and math occupations, the foreign share of the workforce grew from 17% to 26%, replacing our entire population. IT firms in particular have prominently manipulated the H-1B system. As you know, anytime you need to call for tech support, the share of IT workers in the H-1B program grew from 32% to 65%. The whole industry is foreign H-1Bs. Using these H-1B IT outsourcing companies provide significant savings for employers. One study showed that a 36% discount for H-1B entry-level positions compared to full-time traditional workers. They save on labor costs, and what that means, they fire their American staff, and then they outsource these jobs to lower-paid foreign workers because they care about their bottom line. There's no, politicians or real corporations that are standing firm on the value of a strong America. Okay, it's this globalized world where America is just an economic zone, and we should just take in all of the difficulties of all the world. It's our problem. Now, further, the abuse of this program has made it even more challenging for college graduates to find jobs, saying that the abuse of this has also coincided with increasing challenges in the labor markets. In fact, according to a study from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, somebody should check to see if Lisa Cook had anything to do with that study, but among college graduates ages 22 to 27, computer science and computer engineering majors are facing some of the highest unemployment rates across the country because it's filled with foreigners. Now, reports also indicate that American tech companies have laid off their workers. American IT workers have reported they were forced to train foreign workers who then come in and take their jobs, and they have to sign non-disclosure agreements. You're going to train these foreigners, then you're going to get out of here, we're going to fire you, and you're not going to be able to say anything about it if you want your severance, which is sick. The high number of relatively low-wage workers in this program undercut the integrity of the program, and the abuse of this program is also a national security threat. Domestic law enforcement agencies have identified and investigated H-1B reliant outsourcing companies for engaging in visa fraud, conspiracy to launder money, conspiracy under the racketeer influence, corrupt, and other things. And more abuse presents a national security threat because of science and technology. They're taking over the industries. It is therefore necessary to impose higher costs on companies seeking to use this program to invade our country. The severe harms of this large-scale abuse has inflicted harm on our economic and national security, and so therefore, by the authority vested in me, the President, and the Constitution, it is hereby ordered the following. 1. Restriction on entry. Pursuant to the law, the entry into the United States of aliens as non-immigrants to perform services and special occupations under the law is restricted, except for those aliens whose petitions are accompanied by a payment of $100,000 subject to exceptions. Now, this restriction shall expire, absent extension, 12 months from now, September 21, 2025. So we got a 1-year date on this, subject to renewal. The Secretary of Homeland, Kristi Noem, shall restrict decisions on petitions that are not accompanied by a $100,000 payment under this section, if they're coming in here for this, who are currently outside of the United States for 12 months. Okay, so this section, if you're already out and you're wanting to come in, it would apply to you. Doesn't sound like if you're already here, this is going to apply to you, because for H-1Bs, my understanding is that it. In most circumstances, you have to leave the country, go renew, and then come back. So there's some contingent of people who will be okay for the foreseeable future until they have to renew. And upon having to leave the country, when they come back, they better have that $100,000 payment. So the Secretary shall also issue guidance as necessary to the extent permitted by law and prevent the misuse of visas who had an employment start date beginning prior to October 1, 2026. To prevent this, so can she also apply it to the people who are already here? She can look into it and have guidance. Now, the restriction imposed pursuant to subsections A and B shall not apply if Homeland determines that these are specialty occupation workers and we need them. Okay, so Kristi Noem has the authority to create like a safety valve. All right, we need all these like Taiwanese chip manufacturers or something. Okay, cool, they can all come in. Employers shall, prior to the filing of an H1B petition, so if you want to bring in these foreigners, on behalf of an alien, you need to retain documentation showing that you made this payment. And in fact, the Secretary of State, it's Rubio, shall verify receipt of this payment in the amount of $100,000. The DHS shall also coordinate to take all necessary and appropriate action to implement this and deny entry to any employer who's not made the payment. Whew, baby. The restriction on entry shall apply only to aliens who enter or attempt to enter the United States after the effective date of this proclamation as set forth today. Now, no later than 30 days following the completion of the H-1B lottery that immediately follows this proclamation, there's going to be a recommendation of a renewal of the restriction. So you can also amend the prevailing wage levels. This is for rulemaking. Nothing in this proclamation should impair or otherwise impact any other proceedings. And so in witness whereof, the president signs this from Donald J. Trump's hand. And we also are seeing certain people who love foreigners in our country, like Ilhan Omar, are also out there on CNN getting into it with Caitlin Collins. And Caitlin Collins was actually asking her some hard questions. Of course, we know that Ilhan is from Somalia, married her brother, probably has immigration fraud in her record, which means she should be denaturalized. But she, of course, wants more Somalians in America and has facilitated the resettlement of many of them in her home state, which continues to vote for her and steal millions of dollars from Medicare and seniors. But she was asked a question about Charlie Kirk specifically, courtesy of Caitlin Collins, and here's how this one went down.
It was the video where it called him Dr. Frankenstein and said his monster shot him through the neck. I mean, obviously this is a person, and looking at this is someone who was a husband and a father, and in the days after his shocking death that happened as a result of his views, or it happened as a result as he was sharing his views publicly with people, that people found it jarring to hear such criticism of that in the immediate aftermath.
What I find jarring is that there's so many people willing to excuse the most reprehensible things that he said, that they agree with that they're willing to have monuments for him, that they want to create a day.
What's so reprehensible, Ilhan? Say it.
To honor him, and that they want to produce resolutions in the House of Congress honoring his life and legacy. It is one thing to care about his life, because obviously so many people loved him, including his children and wife. But I am not going to sit here and be judged for not wanting to honor any legacy this man has left behind.
Nobody's asking you to honor it, but you don't have to say things like he deserved to get shot in the neck because he was created Frankenstein's monster who shot him in the neck, saying he deserved it, okay? It's just about showing a little empathy. All they're doing is just trying to move the goalposts. Like, we're not going to hold a candlelight vigil for Charlie. We never asked you to do that. All we asked was you to just act like a human who just avoids murder and doesn't condone it and say, well, maybe he deserved it, but they can't even do that, okay? They're monsters.
It should be in the dustbin of history, and we should hopefully move on and forget the hate that he spewed every single day.
Well, hopefully she's denaturalized and deported immediately. She's a citizen fraudster, and citizen fraud is like any other fraud. The contract is invalid, and they should be denaturalized and thrown out. And the winning will continue. You can see here, we would endorse charges for these people who are obstructing federal agents. This is an insurrection outside of an ICE facility. But there was one Democrat congressional candidate who's named Kate Abugazala, of course, and she tried to block an ICE agent's vehicle, and this is what happened to her. It didn't work out so well for her. And how is this not obstruction? They're lucky they're not in jail in solitary confinement. Watch this. Get out! Bye! Oh, no, right on her bum.
fucking fascist pig!
Okay, take your microphone. Get out of here. She's gonna have a sore bum for that one. Now, I'm not in favor generally, you know, of like police brutality or anything like that. Of course, you know, we don't endorse and salivate over those things. This is not police brutality. She was obstructing. He was very nice to her, actually. He could have arrested her, thrown her in the back of the car for obstructing ICE and locked her up, maybe in solitary confinement for insurrecting a federal facility. But as we can see, we've got a lot of people who don't want these foreigners to be thrown out of our country. No matter what, they'll do anything, even borderline commit crimes. And they'll sit there and they'll do it like in the name of like American democracy. Like these are the principles of America. It is to have other foreigners come in and take over and interfere with our country and claim a bunch of rights that don't belong to them. That's not the tradition of America. So don't lecture us about democracy or being bigots or whatever. We're happy to see immigration law be enforced and H1B fees go up because our country is not open to the planet. It's for Americans, and it's nice to see American interests cared for once.